Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault. Today we're talking about public credit versus, private versus public credit score. This is obviously one for the books. We do our best to bring fresh, new, and important content. But we're going to change the format up. We're going to share with you a consultation that we had today with a trustee. And this may be you, it may not be you. This may be you in real life, regardless of you being in trust or being in trusteeship or not. But we're going to have a conversation and talk about what we talked about in the consultation today because it seems as though so many people this podcast was created for African indigenous descent people so they can take ownership of their lives, so they can be in a position of financial power, so we can be provided what is that called, financial literacy. So some people, we will say that this isn't financial advice. We're not lawyers or who those other people are, any of those people. We're not a government affiliate. We don't have a license. When you understand business and you move the right way, that's what it is. So we're speaking about what we know, what we consult trustees to work on it. So here we go. Private versus public credit score. So we have a trustee that has an asset, and it is an apartment building, and this trustee, they put down less than $60,000. They put around $50,000 down on the property. They acquired the property. They just need a construction loan at this point. They don't know that they need a construction loan, but they need a construction loan. Why? Because they're in the development business. They're going to try to say that they're going to rehab the property. They're going to say, what repairs is going to take about a $75,000 to $100,000, maybe $150,000 to repair the property. Okay, now you know what type of loan they're going to need or capital they're going to need, quote unquote, to actually make the repairs because they tapped out when they bought the property in cash. And so we're going to talk about how that's a plus and a minus, but in general, we're going to talk about it, period, because sure, they bought the property outright. Now they're looking at, hey, I don't have any more cash, quote unquote, to actually repair the property, or it's going to take me a while because I'm going to be using more money now that I got to come out of pocket with to actually do it. So trustee says that the property supposedly going to ARV and it's going to be worth $500,000. Now y'all think about that. What type of return? First of all, as a trustee, you're supposed to know how much the return is. What is that percentage return of this asset when you repair it? What are the comps that says this is what the value of the asset is going to be? Soon as you justify that based off the comparables, everybody knows in town, the banks that have lended those other assets money to get the repairs or to put a loan or a mortgage out on their property, guess what? They know what your property is going to be worth when you sell it because they got the comparables. Because you did the ARV at the repair value cost. A price. So the trustee said, oh yeah, it's a $500,000 asset after the ARV's done. Okay. So trustee said, we're talking to trustee like, so you gonna, have you been interviewing banks so you can get a loan? This was the first thing trustees say for all the rest of y'all that want to talk this type of stuff. Well, I got a PG. That's public credit, not private credit. Private credit is business. It's not personal. Your personal credit score is not going to affect the bank giving you money if you think it is. It's not. Oh, Trust Christian, don't say it like that. No, we're telling you the straight up truth. You have an asset. The bank knows you have an asset. The bank's job is to lend against collateral. You have collateral. The collateral is the asset itself. The collateral is the value of the asset. Whether it's ARV, whether it's the $50,000 that you put up for it, that's the value of the asset. The bank is aware of that. The bank is aware of the ARV for that area. They're aware of it. Especially if you're going to banks that have lended to people that are acquiring assets in that area. Because you're going to go to local banks first. Okay. So we talked to the trustee about that because the trustee said, well, I got personally guaranteed. That might personally guarantee. It's a personal guarantee, Trust Christian. That's public credit. You have a bank because you have land. You have an asset. You are not walking in and asking for money. What are you doing? You're walking in asking for a collateralized loan. It's like a secure credit card. You put up the money first, and then they eventually start giving you credit. Then they let you have it as a credit card. They give you back the money. But that's not what exactly it is. We're talking about private. Private means, what's the business worth? That's what the bank wants to know. The bank wants to know, what is the business worth? What is the asset worth? So if you put up $30,000 to $50,000 to get the asset, if they're not gonna give you 500, if they're not gonna give you the cost of the materials alone, it's worth what you paid. Oh, right? You could actually have a security that says this how much the property owe you in cash. But because trustees aren't studying securities, or they studying this goofy stuff over the internet instead of focusing on the actual material you need from the UCC and going to the law library and studying UCC and understanding securities. Oh, Trust Christian, is that how you got the information? Isn't that what y'all want to know? How'd you get the information? Trust Christian in the vault? The law library. Mentors. We sat in the law library. The law library has the UCC governance, contracts. The law library. Securities. Law library. Okay. So we had to talk to the trustee, let them know that they actually have an asset already. They have a bank, basically, because they own the asset outright. There's no debt on the property right now. The new debt is going to be financing for the business. And guess what? Some of y'all may say, oh, Trust Christian, how does he, I bought the asset in my name. Guess what? This trustee owns the asset in a business. Even if it's not in a trust, it's in a LLC. It's in a business position. When you go to the bank, you're going to the bank now with an LLC. What are we talking about? Why would they ask you for a PG? Because, they're supposed to ask. It doesn't mean that you have to give it. You already have collateral with the land itself. It's collateral. That's what they put a mortgage deed on. Mortgage on the deed. It's a mortgage deed. They put that on top of it. The bank's giving you a loan. So we had to share this with the trustees. Some people don't want to hear this. We won't give a good goddamn. Look, so the bank, right? When you put money in the bank, they get $10 from the Federal Reserve, right? And then they issue out money and they still get money from the Federal Reserve, right? Right. That's the only difference between you and the bank. They can go to the Federal Reserve. You're utilizing them as the Federal Reserve because you're tapping into them as your lending facility, quote unquote, to go out and do expansion. So they're like your first internal bank for the actual business. The business now has a financial relationship with a financial institution that's willing to fund what? They're willing to fund equipment. They're willing to fund construction. Because think about it. What are you really getting? Are you getting a loan or are you getting a line of credit? See, this is the mentality that they don't want to talk about over the internet, but everybody's a guru. How are you a guru? It's like you think Trust Christian knows all of the credit facilities at each financial institution? No. When you go to a financial institution, you ask them, what lines of credit and or lending facilities do you have for real estate? If you're in real estate, that's what you would ask. It's not rocket science. So you go into the bank. You ask this individual sitting talking about, oh yeah, Trust Christian, I got to go in the bank and ask them for $70,000 to $50,000 to get, obviously to get this rehab done. It's a construction loan. You got to find out, do they do ground up levels? Are they willing to skip past the first year DSCR? And they're willing to say, you know what? We're going to skip what the cash flow is going to make the first year, but you got to show us what year 2 and year 3 rental comps are going to be in this area so we can justify the loan, and we'll give you a line of credit and loan for what the cash flow of the property is supposed to be. A DSCR loan. But oh no, Trust Christian, I don't know about that. Yeah, because you didn't call the bank and find out what are their credit and credit facilities right now that they have available for real estate. You know how many trustees got jobs and they sitting on that scenario where their family has given them assets? We know trustees that got property all over the country. There is no, ladies and gentlemen, all over the country. Their families got a property. It's got equity in the property and they're working a job. Instead of going out, leveraging the property, acquiring more property, putting themselves in a cash flow position for the assets that they have. But guess what? How are you going to be an asset to the asset when you a liability in knowledge and execution? You got an asset. You got real estate in your hands. So how is it not an asset? Well, because I need money to actually get it cash flowing. Duh. That's what you do. You go take out a loan. If the whole real estate industry is built around that, what makes you think you any different? You want to know what makes you think you different? Because you did it the wrong way by paying cash for an asset up front. And you didn't know that that's how the game's not played. We acquire assets using other people's money at all times. Why? Because the currency, if people want to argue fiat's not real, that's the reason. How you gonna get paid for your labor if you're not even getting paid in real money? Right. There's a currency exchange now. And how can it come from you when it's a debt-driven society? It's not based off of you putting up credit. It's based off of you borrowing and getting debt and learning how to manage debt, whether it's good debt or bad debt. Sure, there's bad debt. That's the public debt. Don't they talk about that all the time? Oh, the country's in such a bad position because of the public debt. They never talk about private debt. They don't talk about private credit. Why? Because it's private, and so they don't talk about it in the public. But we're here to set the record straight. Your private credit score is the assets that you hold. This individual holds real estate. It's owned in cash. That's an asset. So if it's an asset, how is it a challenge to go out and create cash flow now? If anything, you are the bank. You can go out and create a lending and credit facility. That's what you essentially have. But at the end of the day, if you don't know that, you sitting there with an asset in your hands talking about, oh man, I don't want to PG it. You already PG it because you own it outright. You own the asset outright. You are personally liable for it, quote unquote. But this individual has the asset in an LLC. Okay, so they're not legally responsible for it, but they are responsible for it, quote unquote, as a manager of the company. They're still a fiduciary. So do they know what the numbers are for the company? Do they know what this asset is supposed to make? Does this company have a business plan over the next 2 to 3 years to walk into the bank and say, this is what we're going to do with this property for the next year, next 2, next 3? Do you have that mentality as a business manager? Or is it, oh yeah, everybody says just buy real estate and then your life will be better. You'll have a cash flowing asset. It's passive income. How is it passive income and you can't even get a loan to make it passive? Did you know you can get a payroll expense out to you, to the company? Why? Because if you go out and inside of the company, you know how a company may like have property management. So your property management company now can, you and your intelligence, you can have another LLC that does the cleaning. And so now one LLC pays the other LLC because it's paying them for cleaning. Oh, Trust Christian, is that illegal? No, you're actually supposed to go talk to your lawyer about that. You're supposed to go talk to your accountant about that. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go say, okay, well, I have a property. How do we expense out the cleaning for it? And we pay another company. Maybe one of your family member owns that company, quote unquote. Or they're the manager of that company, quote unquote. But how are you going to be responsible for the cleaning? But it's passive. No, when it's clean, when it's passive, you actually have outsourced that. Somebody else, maybe you have a vending relationship, or maybe it's done internally, but it's not done by you. Private credit, you can establish private credit on multiple companies, do net 30 accounts, all type of stuff. That's what we learned with our mentors, how to net 30 one of the other companies that you own, or one of the other companies that you got to do work with. Net 30 it and put it on Duns and Bradstreet, so you can show you got another business that you have a net 30 relationship with. We talking that talk because there's way too many sitting around talking about they want to play business, but they not playing. They playing in the public. They playing with their family's futures. So how do you not play with it? Uh, okay, you have an asset. It's real estate. You own it outright. That means that you can walk into a bank and say, "Hey, look, I have an asset. I'm okay with collateralizing it." What if you say I don't want to collateralize it? Say you do want a PG. You may have good credit. You willing to say, you know what, tap my public credit because that might help the company get more, quote unquote. But y'all can't take out quote unquote a lien on it like that. So it's a non-recourse loan. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Non-recourse. Did you know about non-recourse? Oh man, I'm just gonna go into the bank. They didn't tell me every loan that they got available. They didn't tell me that they got non-recourse. Cause you didn't ask. You haven't gone to the bank and you haven't asked. You have to go to the bank and say, I'm here because I have real estate. I quote unquote own it. It's in my company name. I want to know what are the credit and lending facilities available to me. And you don't go to one bank. You go to multiple banks. You go to multiple banks. You go to some of the small ones. Oh, Trust Christian, I'm with Navy Federal. Everybody want to talk about being with some daggone credit union. But did you actually collateralize your real estate yet? No. I'm going to get a great interest rate. It's not even going to be a personal interest rate. It could or could not be, but you could go business. Do you know what the credit union's business interest rates are? Do you know that they have non-recourse loans available at the credit union? Maybe they don't. And just to give y'all a heads up, the credit unions, they're not always the best. Why? Because they may ask you for a personal guarantee. They don't have the money on the books like bigger commercial lenders. They're community banks. You could go to one bank for the equipment loan. You can go to one bank for the payroll loan. You can a payroll line of credit. You can go to a few different financial institutions for a few different things. But how are you going to know that if you're not carrying the real estate as a business and going to the banks and asking them what they have available? You don't even have to ask them for a loan. What credit lines and credit facilities do they have available for commercial real estate? And we had, of course, some people say, oh, Trust Christian, you sound like a super genius and you know it all. You think you know it all. First of all, we've been given a script. Y'all want to go there? We've been given a script. Trust Christian was given a script to call financial institutions. We're sorry to tell you that. Oh, Trust Christian, we thought you were a super genius. Using a script. You got to call with a script. You got to have outlined questions on what you're going to talk to the bank about. You got to ask specific questions because you're the quote unquote, we're not going to say this as an owner, but you as the fiduciary of the business looking to find out what lines of credit or credit facilities are available to the company right now. That's the position that you're acting in, right? Because your lawyer's not going to do it for you. Your accountant's not going to do it for you. Is your family going to do it for you? Is the family going to call the bank for you and ask what lines of credit are available to my real estate? You might have to call. And when you call, you're going to say, hey, you're going to follow a script. You're going to find out, are they even lending to real estate right now? Some markets may be pulling back. That's important. That's the second question you ask. Hey, how you doing? And are you lending to commercial real estate right now? Oh, I'm sorry to tell you that. Oh, Trust Christian, you didn't even ask them what color the sky was. You didn't ask them if they digested their lunch yet. No. How are you doing? Are you lending to commercial real estate right now? Yes or no? Can I talk to a credit officer? And you're not saying can you, it's I want to talk to a credit officer for commercial real estate or for credit or for a loan. A credit officer. Trust Christian, but my personal credit, because that came up further in the conversation. We were still going with this conversation with the trustee. Trust Christian, my personal credit is that's your public credit score. The private credit score is the value of that asset. The ARV of the asset. That's the private credit score, the asset. So you have the company. You find out that they're lending towards commercial real estate. Okay. You got to find out what their credit limit is. Depends on what size you are in the game. You can't talk to somebody that can't do more than $5 million if you're doing more than $5 million multi-units. But if you're doing less than $5 million multi-units, you can be comfortable with them saying, yeah, my credit limit is $5 million, so I can pretty much approve. You also want to find out, are they the person that's going to approve it, or do they got to go to committee? Do they got to go to committee at the bank, or do they have to go to a committee at a pool of branches? Oh, Trust Christian, you don't know, man. I was thinking it was all based off my credit score because it's not that great. So, I didn't think that they were gonna lend the business anything because I'm attached to it as what? The owner. That's the mentality that's flawed. How do you get around that? You just get in a position of, hey, I'm gonna make it a point to make sure that business is business and personal is personal. When you're sitting at the table with the bank and they're like, you go into the bank and you're talking to them, you following the script, you asking them questions. It's best to call them first. You ask them some questions. You send them what your plan is, quote unquote, maybe for the next few years. Once you repair the property, how the next year or two we gonna look for cash flow so they understand. Because think about it, the bank's not making you a loan for 1 year. The bank's making you a 25-year loan. They might give you interest only payments. Did you ask? I didn't know they could do interest only on a business loan because my personal loans, I'm getting 13% on the car loan. I'm getting 18, I'm getting 6% and 8% on this, that, and the third. The house. Interest only payments. So, okay. They're willing to give you interest only payments over 25 years. You got to calculate that into your cash flow numbers. Like, okay, can I pay back the bank for whatever it is over the next year or two, interest only payments, until I get to year 3 or however long, 4, and it's asset. See, people don't have the right mindset towards business and assets. That's all it is. Many don't. But for the ones that do, they understand that's an easy exit play. Easy exit play. And so here we are. Okay, you gotta have a script. You gotta go into the bank with a script. Oh, Trust Christian, I don't know about all that. I ain't gonna do that because I gotta memorize a script. Or you telling me I gotta have a script. And it's, well, like, do you know how to get the business credit, like, enforced? Like, you literally have an asset in front of you, but you don't know how to enforce it. And we talk to people all the time that say that they have assets. Oh, I have an asset. I have an asset. But you don't know how to get a loan against the asset. And first of all, what is it that you don't want to get a loan against the asset? Because if you do want to get a loan against the asset, you clearly have an asset and you can get a loan against it. The question is it set up from a business perspective, or is it set up from a personal or a public perspective? Because if it's set up from a business perspective, that's a private capacity. That's not a complete public perspective. Because you're not just dependent upon your business, quote unquote, mindset. I mean, you're not just dependent on your personal credit, buying consumer goods. You're focused on how well you can manage a business in cash flow and manage and execute a plan. That's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we are. Do you have a management execution plan for your real estate? Can you take that into the bank? On one page. Oh no, Trust Christian, I gotta have a 20 to 30 page business plan. What's your pitch deck, Trust Christian? Don't you have a pitch deck? A 16 slide pitch deck? A 12 slide pitch deck? No. We're actually telling you that most of the times when we reach out preliminary to a financial institution, we're talking in a one pager. So that means a one liner in the email, in the subject line, and one liner, and then a one pager in the email, and an executive summary of who's going to be managing and what's their plan and what's their thesis for the company, so they don't think that this is a one-off loan. Sometimes if you give the financial institution a thought process that, hey, this is a big picture here, we're not just going to do one asset. They want to hear you're going to do multiple assets. That's how you really get some big dogs to sit in the room with you and take you serious. Oh wow, you got a plan for this area? Okay, so this is the first asset. The comps. You see a few other assets lined up. You just need a loan on this one, but you actually need more money to go buy additional assets, correct? Yeah. Do you hear how the conversation is different? And we're telling and promise you,
We have trustees that are under 23 years old that own quote unquote real estate, have it in their name, quote unquote. I mean, have it in their trust, quote unquote. Have it in their trust, have it in their family estate. They have their own real estate, and they understand that perspective that they can walk into a financial institution and collateralize their real estate for their business venture that they want to do otherwise, and or the current one of property management or real estate leasing and management of an asset. So how are we talking private versus public credit score? That's how we talking private versus public credit score. Private versus public credit score says make sure the assets are in the right position. We understand this one was predominantly on real estate, but this is just a story that came up via consultation because a trustee brought this up, and we just gonna go ahead and tell it like it is because we know a lot of trustees that actually had these issues. Y'all just don't know. It's a lot, and pretty sure it's a lot of trustees and people listening audience that actually has real estate in their name, and they have it, and it's like, how are you working a job? You can go get a loan against the property and start your first business. So that you don't want to hear that. Why wouldn't you go stay? Okay, when we say start your first business, why do you got to start it from scratch? Why can't you go buy a franchise? So you go buy a franchise and you can still manage the franchise as the CEO. That is the difference, ladies and gentlemen. It's understanding that you have assets and you can go out and borrow other people's money to build a whole new asset. But that's the difference in mentality versus private versus public credit score, is understanding those small macro and micro differences. You concerned about your public credit score when in all actuality, think about it, you are never going to get a loan bigger than your public credit score. Your personal credit is never going to get a bigger loan availability than a business for the most part that actually is doing what it's supposed to do. Most won't. Most won't. But we telling y'all straight up. We appreciate y'all. We thank y'all. We always appreciate, the episodes. This episode is obviously based off of a trustee, reaching out to us, getting the consultation and saying, hey, I don't know how to order my affairs when it comes to this asset. And then next thing you know, they got a plan of action for the next few days that they can, they got to interview financial institutions. This is the reality. How you gonna get private credit and you ain't got you ain't got a financial institution you can reach out to? Grow Trust Christian, they're private. So how am I supposed to know if they're private? That's the point. You got to reach out to organizations like the Vault. You got to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. You got to reach out. You got to find out what are some of the initial private relationships that you can reach out to. So y'all say, oh, Trust Christian, what are you talking about? Ain't nothing that secretive. Because once we know it, we could tell the world. First of all, we going to tell y'all like we told the trustee. The trustee said, but I don't know nobody. I don't know no private banking relationships. And we told him, yes, you do. And we shared with them someone that we already met with them through. And they said, oh, yeah. You hear that? And then it's like, well, why didn't you reach out to him? Why? Because you didn't have a plan. It's not that you can't reach out to that relationship. It's because you don't have a plan to approach them properly and sound sophisticated and actually get the money. You think Trust Christian involves about to put their name and reputation on the line to give you a private financial relationship, and you sit there and you ruin it? And it's not going to be that you really going to ruin it, but you ruin your chances, and you don't want to hear it. Sure, the financial relationships say, oh, you're not going to ruin your chance. You just bought us a bad deal. Yeah, but they also looking at the quality of deals you bring them too. So you could ruin your own name. Not Trust Christian's name. You're going to ruin your own name. Why? Because you didn't walk through the door. Trust Christian told you to prep yourself up front. Hey, you might want to go ahead and get a plan, a management execution plan in place. Whatever you got to do, you might have to figure it out as far as searching over the internet. But you find out what management execution plans look like. You find out, okay, if I got to keep this on one page, I got to figure out how to get this AI'd out to where it's on one page and go forward from there. Because at the end of the day, the financial relationship sitting there waiting with cash. They're just waiting to hear your management execution plan. Because they cannot give you money without knowing that you got a plan. That's almost like you say, oh, they need a PG. Yeah, they also want a management execution plan. You hear that? They don't want to just, oh, I need some money. I need $500,000 because the property. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear, hey, just to let you know, we got a real estate firm. We're actually buying properties. We have a development property right now that we're working on. This is the cost that it's going to cost. This is the ARV. We're looking to hold it over this long. And over the next 2 to 3 years, this is what the cash flow looks like in the Excel real quick here at the bottom of the page. Just to give you that. Oh, trust Christian, that sounds very sophisticated. You can Google it. You can search it over the internet. You can search it. What do these contracts look like? You can go to the law library. It doesn't need to be long. Why? Because it's supposed to be one page. So you already know. Anything longer than one page, you already messing up. Oh no, there's no way I could do it. That's why you got to use the AI. So you can get it to be shorter and make it one page. Make it that good. Make it that sweet. So when you walk into the financial institution, especially the private ones, y'all know they sophisticated. They're private. You walk into a sophisticated financial institution, it's not just Joe Blow sitting there making $80,000. This could be a serious financial lender, and that means they're gonna give you capital. But you came in there with a management execution plan. You ain't coming there like everybody else. And you came in there not lying to yourself, not over promising and under delivering. All you did was just go in there and say, hey, look, I'm looking for 70, 80, $100,000 to rehab this property. We're looking for less than $250,000 to rehab this property. Y'all already know. Y'all asking for less than $1 million, man. Ain't no bank sitting here sweating no daggone $250,000 for you on no daggone real estate project. You probably could hurt the bank a little bit if you hit them with a $2 million like loss or something. But if you're not borrowing more than $2 million, come on now, like go ahead and prepare your deck, prepare your one pager, prepare the numbers that you need to prepare based off listening to this episode. You definitely want to know the expenses for the property. You want to build those in, put those things in a P&L spreadsheet to let them know, because they may say, oh, the business needs to be around for 2 years. We address that on the line with the trustee too. Oh yeah, the banks told me they want to see 2 years worth of tax returns. Trust Christian. What? The bank wants to see 2 years worth of tax returns for a business that doesn't have any cash flow. You got to be smart enough to say, hey, bank, guess what? It is a construction company. So we don't have any of that. We actually need a loan for equipment to start the construction. And we also need a loan for it, or whatever you need. You got to find out what you need as far as a credit facility for the financial situation. That's it. That's what you got to find out. What do you need as far as this is the minimum amount or maximum amount over a period of time? You will be able to let them know that. That's what you're supposed to let them know. That's what you got to know your numbers though. That's one thing we'll say, a lot of the mentors would always say, is you got to know your numbers. So you already know what time it is. You got to know your numbers. If you ain't a numbers person, this ain't the business for you. And we've also shared with that trustee, they actually see, we're going to go ahead and break it down. We started the conversation like this. Some of y'all don't have a rich uncle or a rich aunt or someone that could walk you into the bank and say, hey, yeah, I'm pretty much going like basically PG this. Basically going to be the co-signer. But we not going to put up no money. And y'all about to give us some money. Because I got a business. Y'all been lending to me. I paid back my money. I've been doing well with my business. And I'm a part of this business. So go ahead and lend us some money. At a real low interest rate. Almost no interest rate. Interest only type stuff. Non-recourse type stuff. And you could get it. But if you don't got a rich uncle or a rich aunt, you know how you got to walk into the bank. You got to walk in there a little bit cleaner. A little bit more silkier. A little bit more smoother. You gotta be succinct in your speech. You gotta be clear. You gotta be clean on your numbers. You gotta know those type of things. Otherwise, banks gonna look at you like, well, okay, rumba dum dum. We might as well just hold on to this because we know it. And if anything, think about it. So the bank's willing to give you $150,000, and they actually knew you was gonna lose it. They knew you were going to lose the money. Oh, no, Trust Christian. They didn't think I was going to lose it. Nah, they knew you was going to lose it. Real talk. They knew you was going to lose the money. Real talk. Because you didn't go in there with a real plan. They didn't really even have too much confidence in you. But they just gave you the money. Because they sometimes had to lend the money. And because you didn't have what we told the trustee they want to put like dates in place. You want to have like a deadline in place. You want to put that in place on the document so the bank knows this person has serious deadlines that they're going to hold the contractor to. Small things like that that shows that you're a seasoned manager, as opposed to somebody just going in the first time and you're gonna get your face handed to you. And when we say face handed, the guy that gave you the quote, y'all only got one GC because he's your uncle. He's your uncle's friend. You're not supposed to use family and friends. That might be a hard reality. You got to get 2 or 3 quotes for the job. Just like you got to go to more than one bank. So you got to get multiple people if you're doing that type of stuff. Same thing with property managers. Same thing with cleaning all your vending relationships. You got to vet multiple vending relationships and do price comparisons and do comparisons on the quality of work. But you build that into the pro forma. You Google what pro forma means. You figure out, oh, okay, I got a 2-year pro forma, a 3-year pro forma. The bank appreciates knowing, because they're going to ask you for the business plan. The pro forma is a form of the business plan. You could show them month by month, hey, this is what our expenses most likely going to be. This is what we're going to be making money off. You got to let them know insurance. You got to let them know all of that. Hey, this is our expenses. This is what we're going to be making. This is how we're going to increase the rent every single year. Or this is our strategy on increasing the rent, because you're going to increase the rent every year, right? Right? You're going to increase the rent every year. It's a business, right? You're not just running a hobby. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to upcharge these people on rent. What are you talking about? It's a business. So you put that percentage at the end of the year, and then you go through the whole next year showing what that rent increase looks like, and they can see incrementally, okay, and do you know if that's in alignment with the market? You got to make sure that that's in alignment with the market. And if anything, just go off market rent increase. But how would you know that if you're not treating it like a business? You got to treat it like it's a business. Treat it like it's a business. Go do your homework. Make sure that you walk into the bank or any private financial relationships, and make sure that you got a management execution plan. Simple. These are simple things, and we just want to share that because a lot of you all are sitting on assets, and we noticed this. That's the craziest part. If y'all only knew how many trustees we know that have land. Everybody will brag about having land. I got land trust, Christian, but you didn't go get a loan for it yet. You didn't find out what the comparables are in the local area, so you can get a loan against the land to find out what would be any type of like credit facility for land development. Do you know any of those? Did you go to shop it around at more than one bank? Did you put anything on paper? So how do you do that? You go back to the episode. If you reach out to the vault, Christian at trustchristian.com, we can make sure that you have a script. It's really not a big deal for us, to make sure that you have a script. But you can feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. It's a simple script. We told the trustee, if you don't follow the script, you can't. We already know why you ain't going to do well. Why? Because the script is for you to ask intelligent, important financial questions so you cannot waste your time, and you know the parameters. So when you get off the line the first time after you interview them, you can say, okay, I know now what my management execution plan has to have a minimum of. I have to have a minimum of this, a minimum of that, a minimum of this, and I got to calculate all of this stuff out, or find someone to calculate all this stuff out, which if y'all want to go there, y'all could pay somebody through Fiverr to actually do the work, just to give y'all the heads up. Don't make no excuses like, oh yeah, I don't know how to do the calculations, and I don't know how it's going to take forever, and all this other stuff. It's just a whole bunch of things that are going on Fiverr, some little discounted work stuff, and get them to do it, and they'll do the work. They'll do the number crunching. They'll do the homework. You got to explain to them the job you need them to do. They'll do the number crunching. You can get a certified CPA to do that work, and y'all should be fine. What's going on? What's going on? Where y'all listening from? Feel free to type into the chat where y'all listening live, listen to replay from. Feel free to type into the chat where you listen live, listen to replay from. Other than that, we already know we dropped a bunch of bombs that these guys on the internet just be talking about, and they barely talking about it. If that was the case, a lot of our people would have been saved by now. They would be having assets. They wouldn't be working jobs. They would have a lot more asset-based position instead of just sitting on assets, because they're really the liability to the fact that they don't really know how to cash in on the asset. It's just bottom line. They don't know how to cash in on the asset. They don't know how to hedge the assets. These guys, some of the trustees, they own assets outright, and they think it's cool. It ain't cool. How you own an asset outright and you're not making money off it? That's not an asset. It's a liability. Why? Because it does take money to make money. You still got to pay to manage it and take care of the asset. That's the cost of the asset, right? So where's the cash flow? Where's the cash flow? So that's where we are. We're making sure that people understand both sides of it, which is cash flow as well as, oh, I have an asset. And you can get cash flow by taking out, quote unquote, some type of credit facility. And that's just bottom line. If y'all want to reach out and get a consultation, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, the email is Christian at trustchristian.com. Definitely listen. Appreciate everybody that's listened to all the episodes throughout the years. Just appreciate you all big time. Appreciate all the trustees that have listened throughout the years. And at this point, we're just gonna keep dropping like really quality knowledge. We got a few more episodes, especially about people that are going through divorces. It's a lot of trustees that reached out to us at the end of the year on that divorce stuff, and it ain't one in particular. So don't take it personally, trustees. But we giving y'all the heads up. It's a lot of trustees going through divorces, and they want to sit over here talk about some money, and it's like, well, sure, you could. It's not a big deal. In all actuality, you could be in trusteeship or get in trusteeship if you going through something. But at the end of the day, some of y'all holding out, and then next thing you know, y'all wait till the last minute when the person done filed on you and really is challenging to get the business and the assets out your name. You might as well just go ahead and do it in a relationship. A lot of y'all really don't want to be married, and a lot of y'all sitting in situations damn near worse than the business. You got an exit plan for your marriage, but you ain't got an exit plan for your business. So we can talk about it. We cool with sharing it. We're comfortable with sharing it. We're looking forward to sharing it on those type of thought processes, because it's not us in a bad way. It's just, and it's not people in a bad way. It's just the reality of life. You get a lot of trustees that want that level of asset protection and security, and it's not hard to get, but it is something you have to invest in your education and invest in their relationships. So we appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in a replay. Christian at trustchristian.com is the email you can reach out to. Christian at trustchristian.com. We look forward to hearing from you all. Peace and joy.